Join me as we learn Chitas for today, Monday, the second Torah reading of Parsha Shemos. Yesterday we learned that the Jewish people are settling in the land of Egypt. They continue to prosper and grow. However, Pharaoh gets concerned and needs to deal with the Jewish problem, and thereby decides to enslave them, giving them back-breaking labor. As well, his stargazers told him that there's going to be a leader from the Jewish people that will save them, a boy. With that, he commands the Jewish midwives to kill every Jewish male and allow the Jewish females to survive. They did not listen to Pharaoh's decree. This is where today's Torah reading begins by Pharaoh summoning the Jewish midwives, why they did not follow his orders. Chapter 1, verse 18. Vayikra melech Mitzrayim lamiyaldis. And the king of Egypt summoned the midwives. Vayomer lem, and he said to them, Adu asisen es hadavar hazeh. Why have you done this? And you kept the boys alive. Verse 19. And the midwives answered Pharaoh, the Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women. They are very skilled. By the time, they're like animals who are very skilled. What does this mean? Before the midwife would even get to them, they already have given birth. Rashi, what does it mean they are skilled like animals? They are skilled like midwives. They don't need our help. The Targum explains like animals. The rabbis explain. If you look at the Jewish people, they are compared to the animals. Yehud is a lion, Binyamin is a wolf. And therefore, they don't need midwives. Where do you see that they're compared to animals? As we mentioned in last week's Torah reading, Guraria, Yehud is a lion, Zev Yitraf, Zev is a wolf, Bechar Shur, Yosef is an ox. Ayol Shlucha, Naphtali is compared to a deer. Whoever it is not mentioned by them that they're compared to an animal, and the verse concludes them all when he says that that Yaakov blessed them all together as one. That means even though they don't have a clear, direct analogy to an animal, but they're all part of the same blessing. So Oid Ksiv, another thing it says in the tractate in the book of Yecheskel, Ma im Chalavia, that the prophet compares the Jewish people to a lion, the mother, a woman lion, the mother of all lions. So the Jewish people are compared to animals, and therefore he says they are like animals and they don't need our expertise. Verse 20. And God dealt kindly with the midwives. And the people to continue to increase and grew very strong. Rashi, Vayetev. What does it mean, Vayetev, that God was kind to them? Heitiv, he did favors to them. He made it good for them. This is the difference when you have a word that its root is, for example, toiv, but the two letters before it are vav and yud. Meaning, in this case, the vav and yud say, and what happened to them. When it's coming to tell me something of what will occur. So then you have the yud with a tzeir, vayetev, as in our case, that God made it good for the midwives, vayerev bevas Yehuda, here Betania, vayagel she'iris, dunavunzradon, and over here he gives multiple cases of where you see the yud has this segel or tzeire, and it means that will happen to them. Vayafin znavel zanav, hifne zanav izulazu, kol eshel lashanivel esacherim, kshumedaber b'lashin vayifal, lunokara yud b'chirik. However, when he wants to say that the action happened on its own, then it will be with a chirik, vayitav beinav, and it was good in his eyes. That means it happened already, lashon hutav. Or vayidev va'am, that the nation became a lot, nisrabam, vayigal Yehuda, hagla Yehuda, vayifin kevakoi, that he turned to both ways. Hifna Moshe lakana lakanda, Moshe turned to both ways. Now Rashi continues, V'al teshivenu, so you're going to ask me, I find in other places it says, vayelech, vayeshev, vayered, vayetze, and he went, he settled, he went down, he walked, he left. Well, all of these are tzeir, even though it means that the person himself is doing it, not that it's happening to them. These are not the same, because in those cases the yud is from the foundational letter. For example, Yored, Yotza, Yoshav, Yolech, they went down, went out. Those are the root words. The yud is part of the root word, so therefore the yud does not serve as a servant to the word. telling me its activity, but it's actually part of the word. Yud Oishlishis by the Yud is the third letter in it, and therefore the rules there are different. And God was kind to the midwives. How was he kind? That's the next verse. Verse 21. But because the midwives feared God, God granted them dynasties, literally meaning homes. What does it mean? Homes, dynasties. Rashi says, the dynasties of the priesthood and the Levites and the kingdom. Which those are called homes. To build the house of God, and the house of the king. Where do we see this happen? The priesthood and the Levites came from Yocheved, which your two sons, Moses and Aaron. Hamalchus and the kingdom, Miriam, came from Miriam, as it says in the Tractate of Sota, that from Miriam that she married into the tribe of Judea, that King David was from the children of Miriam. Verse 22, because the midwives weren't listening to what Pharaoh said, therefore Pharaoh now had to make a new rule. And this rule was, Pharaoh then gave orders to all his people, you should cast every boy who is born into the Nile River. And you should make every girl live. When we say every girl live, as we said before, that they should be assimilated into the land of Egypt. 22, L'chol Amoy, to all of his nation. Meaning that Pharaoh didn't only make the decree against the Jewish people, this was even on the Egyptians. Rashi, Afaleim Gazer, even the Egyptians, he said that they should throw them into the Nile River. When was this? When did he continue to do this? Yom Shenelad Moshe, the day that Moshe was born. Amrulay Tztaginov. His stargazers told him, Hayoim Neilad Mashiach, today the savior of the Jewish people were born. Einanu Yoidim, we don't know Mitzrayim, if he's an Egyptian, in Yisrael, if he's a Jew. Veroinanu, we see Shatseif Alilkas B'mayim, that he will be making the plagues of water, that he will be caused to be hurt by water. Therefore he made a decree that day, even on the Egyptians, Shenemer, as it says, every poor Jew, every male that's born, those that were born to the Jews. They did not know. What does this mean that he will be hit by water? That yes, he will be punished by water, but not these waters of the Nile River. Later on, when he's leading the Jewish people, and he hits the water by the rock, that will cause that he should be punished by it. Chapter 2, verse 1. Now the Torah provides us a little bit of details about Moshe's life. Now that we know what's going on in the general atmosphere of Egypt, the hardships that the Jewish people are going through, the Torah tells us how Moshe is born. Chapter 2. And a Levite man went and remarried a woman, a daughter, Levi's daughter. And a man went from the house of Levi, and he married Levi's daughter. What's going on over here? Who's married who? And Rashi explains to us. Why does it say he took? Why doesn't it say just married? And what happened over here is because they were already married and they had two children, Aaron and Miriam. But Amram, the father of Moshe, he separated from his wife, because of the decree of Pharaoh. Now over here he went back and took her back. That's why he went. He went with the advice of his daughter. His daughter told him, said, Dad, you are the leader of the generation. People are looking to you to see what you do. Your decree is worse than Pharaoh, because since you went and separated from your wife, everybody else separated from their wives as well. Pharaoh only decreed his decree on the males. And you, because you separated from your wife, and now everybody else separated from their wives, even females won't be born. So therefore, what did he do? He went back, and married her again, Shneim, for the second time. So to her, Yocheved was already old at the time. Nefchalias Naira became a young woman. Her years of Yocheved at the time come out, Bas Kuf Lamed Shanaisa, she was about 130 years old. Shenilda Bevela Mitzrayim, she was born when they came into Egypt. Bein HaChaimis, right by the walls. Umasayim Veser Nishto Sham, and the Jewish people were there 210 years. When they left, Moshe was 80. So if you deduct 80 off 210, it comes to reality that when she became pregnant with Moshe, she was 130 years old. However, the Torah calls her Kaira Bas Levi, a daughter of Levi, because since she went back to her youthful age, that she should be able to give birth. Verse 2, Vatara Isha Vateled Bain, and the woman conceived and she gave birth to a boy. This is in the year 2368 on the day of 7 Adar. Vateled Bain, she gave birth to a boy, and she saw that this boy is good, how good he was, and she kept him hidden for 3 months. Why? So Rashi explains what's happening here. When he was born, the whole home became full of light. Therefore, she called him Toiv, as God called it good. Others also explained that she saw he was born circumcised. That's why he called him Toiv. As the Medrash says that his father called him Tuvia. Over here we come to verse 3. Why for 3 months? And what's the 3 months about? Verse 3. She was no longer able to hide him. So she took a wicker basket and and she caulked it with clay, and with pitch. And she put the child in it. And she placed it among the rushes. Al Svasa Ya'ur, near the banks of the Nile River. Rashi. Why wasn't she able to hide him any longer? Because the Mitzrayim, the Egyptians, will keep count 9 months from the time a person became, once she got married, from the day that she returned to her husband, to be able to see that most women give birth after 9 months, to see if she gave birth, and then they would come and snatch the child. She gave birth, Moshe was born as a premature, 6 months. One day, because one that gives birth to 7 usually doesn't make it to 9. So she's usually giving birth like only part of the 7th month. So therefore they didn't know that she gave birth already. So they only came to check up for her l'seif tisha at the end of 9 after they knew that she has given birth. So therefore she could no longer hide her. So what did she do? She made this wicker basket, goime, which is clay. Gemi b'lashon the Mishnah b'las v'davar it's very soft. Oimer b'fnei rach b'fnei kasher. The usual way of it is that it's able to float in the water. I'm sorry, this is wicker that we're talking about here, and it's able to float in the water, and it's something which is soft, and therefore it will not get broken, and at the same time it won't get damaged. B'chemer v'zafes, with clay and with clay and with pitch. Zefes mibachutz, the pitch was on the outside, v'tit b'mifnim, and the clay was on the inside. Kadesh li'riach is tzaddik riach rashel sefes, so that the great tzaddik Moshe should not have to smell the terrible odor of the pitch. Vatasam besuf, and she put it in the swamp or at the rushes near the bank of the Nile River. Hu loshin agam, that's the name of a swamp. Why? Because over there the earth is very wet, because a lot of things just grow there on its own. Rushil v'deimale kind of asuf kamela. We find this also in Isaiah, where we talk about the bad that's going to happen. The rivers and the oceans will dry up. That you'll see the big stalks that are falling because they are drying because of there's no water. Torah now continues on verse 4. And his sister Miriam stationed herself from a distance, Ledeah, to know what's going to happen with him. Verse 5, and the Pharaoh's daughter, Batya, went down to wash herself at the river, to bathe at the river. And her maidens were walking along the Nile's edge. And she saw the basket. At the edge of amongst the rushes of the river. And she sent her maidservant, or according to some, she took it, as we'll soon see. And she took it. Rashi, she went to bathe herself by the river. You have to mix around the words in this verse in order to understand what's happening here. What happened there? The daughter of Pharaoh went down to the river, to bathe herself. Then you have to go, Ala Yair. Where did she go? Eitel Yair, next to the river. Like we see in other places, Al Yadei or Al Yad means on the side. Hukloshin Yad Mamish, this means the hand. Yad Adam Smuchalei. The reason why it's called Al Yadei or Al Yad means next to, because your hand is next to you. Rabbi Seinu Amru, Hilches, meaning that her maidservants went. Loshin Misahi. It's a type of death, meaning I'm going to die. So too, her maidservants were going on the side of the river. Holchas Lomos, they were going to die, because they were trying to protest that she should not save the child. And therefore, Gabriel came and killed them, that they shouldn't be an obstacle to the daughter of Pharaoh taking Moshe. The verse that we're learning here helps us understand that and sees that as well. Why does the verse even have to say that they were going on the side of the river? Big deal. It's only telling us that they looked like they were going on the side of the river, but afterwards they were killed because since they tried stopping Batya from taking Moshe. Es Amasa, her maidservant. Es Shivchasa, her maidservant. Rabbi Seinu Darshu. The rabbis have learned Lashon Yada was her hand. Aval, Fidiktuk Lashon HaKodesh, however, according to the proper Hebrew grammar, Amasa. It should have been the mem, should have had a dot in it. B'mam degusha. The Haim Darshu, they say Amasa, her hand. Es Yada Nishtavrava Amasa Amis Harbe. That what does it mean? Why is it referred to her hand? Because her hand extended by many handbreadths, so she should be able to reach the basket that is far from her. Verse 6. Vatiftach, and she opened it. Vatireus hayeled, and she saw the child. V'hine nar boich, and the lad was crying. Vatachmil alav, and she had mercy, she had pity on him. Vatomer, and she said, Miyalde Ivrim, this is a Jewish child. Rashi, verse 6. Vatiftach vatireu. She saw, she opened it and she saw. Mira asa, who did she see? As hayeled, she saw the child. Zeb Pshuti, that's the simple interpretation. Umidrashay, the Medrash says, she saw that the divine presence was with him. Why does it say a lad was crying? Is it a child or a lad? He had a voice which was already mature. And Moshe's sister, and the lad's sister, tells the daughter of Pharaoh, should I go and call a nursing woman, a wet nurse for the child, a Jewish wet nurse for you? And they will be able to nurse the child for you. Why did she say specifically from the Jewish ones? So Rashi says, verse 7, she brought many different Egyptian wet nurses, Lenik, to give the child to nurse, but he wouldn't nurse from them. Because since he's going to speak he's going to speak with the divine presence, he's going to speak to God. And how is it befitting that a child, a mouth that would speak to God, should nurse from a non-Jewish wet nurse? Verse 8. And this daughter of Pharaoh said to her, Lechi, go. Alma, and the mature girl went. And she called the child's mother. Alma, Rashi says, she went quickly, swiftly, va'almus, very quickly, ka'olam, like a young, energetic child that she went to get the mother of the child. Vatomer labaspari, and the daughter of Pharaoh said to the mother of the child, take this child, venikuli, and nurse him for me, and I will pay you for it. And the woman took the child, and she nursed him. Verse 9, Helichi nisnaba. Over here, the daughter of Pharaoh said prophecy. Nisnaba did not know what she was saying, prophecy, because she did not know that this child was Yochevet's. Hi, Shelichi, take yours, what belongs to you. And the child grew up at the Viyalubas, and she brought it back to the Pharaoh's daughter. And he became like a son to her. And she was very fond of him, and therefore Vatikra Shmoi Moshe, she called him Moses. And she said, why am I calling him Moshe? Because I drew him from water. Rashi, Mishisuhu, Kitargume, Shechalte, I picked him up, I took him out. This is what it means to remove or to take in the Aramaic. Kemishchal benista de chalpa, like taking somebody that pulls a string out of the fat. B'loshen ivri, in the Hebrew, mishisu loshen asiroisiv, removal. La yamush, like we find the Torah should not move. Le mashu kach Hibri Menachem. This is the way Menachem ben Sruk, who was the author of the grammatical Hebrew, explained this as well. I say ene memachberes mosh v'yamush ela migizras moshoy v'loshen etzahu. It is not from the terminology. I don't think Mashisu is coming from the word mush or yamush, which means to remove, but it actually comes from the word moshoy, which means to pick up, to take out. That we find this actually in the book of Samuel. Because if it would have been from the word to move, mush, it should have said hamishisu. Kasha yamar min kam hakimoisi. Umin shav hashivoisi, min bahavi yosef, oy mashtiu, or mashtias, of an aretz. The different samples that Rashi give are different words or different verbs that it should have been if it means to move. Avol mashisi, eine ela megizas teva shapoil shalom yusud behei b'seif teva. The word mashisi is coming from a word that the last letter of it is a hey, which can be either masha, bana, asa, tziva, or pana, because he's coming to say, I did something. So the yud at the end comes instead of the hey, like sisi, I did it, banisi, I built it, panisi, I cleared it, tivisi, I commanded it. So to over here, mashisi, I removed him from the river, and for that reason, I'm going to call him Moshe. This tells us about the birth of Moshe, and that Moshe was born to Yocheved and Amram, and the name that he was given, Moshe, was the name that was chosen by Batya, while his parents called him Toiv or Tuvia. This concludes the second Torah reading for Parshas Shemos.